The Bulldogs wars with the Mexican Mafia and Sureños in prison. They did what they were supposed to do. They were attacking the Bulldogs as they're being processed into a prison. This is unprecedented. They don't show loyalty to the Mexican Mafia. Yeah, they did that until the Mexican Mafia called upon them to hit one of their own. Hey folks, my name is Rene Enriquez and you are watching Uncensored. This one I have intimate knowledge about. The Fresno Bulldogs. Yep, the Fresno Bulldogs. They're a hot topic, right? Well, they were a couple months ago, and I didn't want to jump on the bandwagon because I'm not one of those guys. In fact, here's a comment I'll read to you that came in a couple days ago. It's by @36madness. Sanger has nothing to do with Fresno. It's Fresno County, 30 minutes away from Fresno. That's why Sureños' presence is strong there and survived, because nobody over there but in Fresno. That's a different beast. The Bulldogs' presence is overwhelming. It's rare to see a northerner or southerner in Fresno. There are other comments as well in the comment section. And this has always been a cluster F for the Mexican Mafia particularly, right? And there's a reason for that. But first, let's check out this little clip on the Bulldogs. I have encountered Bulldogs while incarcerated. In fact, I was with one named Roger in SMY, Ironwood actually. He turned out to be a nice guy. But Bulldogs are a different breed. If you've ever walked into a unit where Bulldogs live, you hear them barking.
Call my nigga Big Mix.
Fresno Bulldogs.
We here with the Fresno Bulldogs.
We in the dog den.
How it's done out here in the night.
Yeah, you hear it? I know you hear it.
Man,
fuck scratch.
So, you heard that. East Side. And they got a different style, right? Sureños don't act like that. They don't dress like that particularly, right? We know Norteños wear red, Sureños wear blue. And I don't know why that ended up being the colors of choice for different regions, right? But nobody really knows. I don't think there's a way to track this back. These Bulldogs, you hear them saying F scraps. That's what they refer to Sureños as, scraps and sewer rats. So they oppose the organization, they disrespect the organization, and they do it on videos and everywhere else. They do it in person if they can. In fact, there were a couple of recorded incidents in the recent past about the visiting room where incidents occur with Bulldogs. But this next part is important.
Bulldogs. This is college show, man. You know what I'm saying? It's downtown Fresno where it all goes down. Downtown, baby. College Street Bulldogs. That's what it is.
Nope. Fuck them scraps. Fuck bust.
College Street Bulldogs. Now fuck Comptown. Fuck them scraps, man.
When you walk into a unit, or say there's just two Bulldogs, they do that back and forth to each other, that barking. You can hear it in NADSEG particularly. You can hear those guys barking a lot, right? On the main line, not so much. There was very few of them on the main line. Only in SMY have I ever encountered them out there with us, and they were cool with me. I didn't have a beef with them. But this here, they're calling busters, which are the northerners, and scraps, which are Sureños. So they oppose everybody. In fact, they used to be Norteños. Fresno 14. Then they got into a beef with the Nuestra Familia, and they fell out with the Sureños and the Mexican Mafia. And that's their mentality. F everybody.
That's how we bark and we bite, buddy. Ain't no just bark, it's all bark and bite.
Check out little Pimp Man in the red right there with that little funny red hat. But that's their style. That's their get down. In fact, it's almost Northern Edgars, because they got the lingo down, they got the dress down. They're Northern Edgars.
And then we got more, you know what I'm saying?
And we putting it down in the nose.
CD fucking Bulldogs, you know what I'm saying? This how we do, dog. But we got more, we got plenty of more, dog. You know what I'm saying? No, we riders, dog. We ready to die to the dog, till the wheels fall out, Bulldog. We young, yeah. We ride, dog. You know what I'm saying, dog? Bulldogs, dog, for life, dog.
Bulldogs out here.
No, set your killer ass on,
Bulldogs, baby.
that motherfucking dog life fly.
666, dog.
Fucking dog life. We hang on this one with deeper than the motherfucking nose. Bulldog run the motherfucking This is how it goes in the motherfucking nose down, Bulldog. Cause I'm a motherfucking dog that.
So you see they're flamed up, right? That's what they're called, being flamed up, right? They're all red. Their emblem is the Fresno Bulldog.
Man, this is my older homie right here, man. We been putting this motherfucker down since we were like 12 years old and shit, man. Selling D, everything, man. We don't give a fuck. College Street, fuck the police.
Fresno.
And what?
It's that big black slide coming in right
Hey,
here.
check this out. Fuck my PO too, man. Fuck that bitch.
Fresno Bulldog.
College Street Bulldog.
Motherfucking beat up, motherfucking beat.
You know what I mean? R.I.P. my nigga Roy. R.I.P.
And that is the Fresno Bulldogs. That's the mentality. That's how they carry themselves, and that's who they are. I'm not saying all of them are this way, but when you get them in a group, they act this way. They start barking. They start making noise. You know, let me know what you think about this in the comments. Be sure to hit that like, subscribe. You got to give them credit. They resisted the NF and survived, and they resisted the Mexican Mafia and survived. And they went to war. They declared open war on any active gangs, right? That's who they are. They're an island unto themselves, and they're okay with that because they've survived. There's a lot of these guys. They're a big group. In fact, let's read this right here. Fresno Bulldogs, BDS for short, also known by the abbreviations FBD and F14. I do not think they use F14. In fact, I think they crossed that out because there's another gang, Fresno 14, that they don't get along with. Is a primarily Mexican-American criminal street and prison gang located in the 559 area code, California. They're considered to be one of the biggest drug gangs in Central California, with membership estimated to be in the cities of Fresno, Selma, Kerman, Sanger, Clovis, Madera, San Joaquin, Coalinga, Huron, Mendota, Orange Cove, and Avano. They're engaged in a wide range of criminal activity and have been subject to many high-profile cases over the years. Fresno Bulldogs are largely conflicted with other prison gangs and are the biggest Hispanic gang in California unaffiliated with Sureños or Norteños. Listen carefully. This part matters. Fresno Bulldogs can be traced back to the 70s, but did not become an independent street gang until the 1980s. Their independence developed in the California prison system during prison wars of 1984 and 1985, back when there was still an allegiance between Norteños and F-14ers. The gang was known as F-14. In 1986, the F-14ers went to war with the Norteños, which led to a violent war in the California prison system in gang folklore known as the Red Wave. The F-14ers began using the Bulldog name and mascot of Fresno State University, including the paw print and Bulldog head image in the graffiti and tattoos. They also bark to one another as a call sign, Bulldog calling, and address each other as dog, perro, or efe. They also adopted Fresno State apparel as de facto uniforms, causing a tenfold increase in royalties to the university from licensed merchandise sales from the 1990s and the late 2000s. So, here's one of the indictments that came down where they swooped up a bunch of bulldogs, weapons, drugs, like a typical federal indictment. They have federal task forces out there as well, folks. They have federal task forces out there as well. And they do investigate these guys because they're a criminal organization. It's not just a gang, it's a criminal organization. It's been labeled as such by the federal government and been prosecuted as such by the federal government. Here's where the chaos comes in. Alfonso Palomino, also known as Fonzi from the Mexican Mafia. He's from Fresno 14. He was a Norteño, and he got made a Mexican Mafia member. The kicker is that his son is a Fresno Bulldog, and they had always been conflicted with the organization since this division between the Bulldogs and the Norteños and NF. When they went to war, Bulldogs couldn't walk anywhere on any main line or with Sureños. They had isolated locations that they went to, and they were always in trouble. But one time, myself and Maurice in Folsom State Prison laid over there. We went out to court. I believe it was for a crip that we were testifying for. Vincent Bruce. We were transferred from Pelican Bay State Prison to New Folsom, and we were approached by Sureños and Bulldogs while we were there. We were the only two carteles in that unit, and they approached us, and they asked us if they could program with Sureños. The Bulldogs asked us this. Well, in the cell with little Maurice brought up the fact that Fonzi's son, Alfonso Palomino, he doesn't like being called Fonzi, by the way. He does not like being called Fonzi because Big David Galvadon stabbed a Northerner and eliminated him in Folsom State Prison because the Northerner was accused of running with the NF, which was untrue. It was just a hit to get Spider off the yard, really. I'll do another episode on that. That's a whole story in and of itself. But little Maurice, when we're in the cell, tells me that Palomino's son is a Bulldog and that we should approve this in order to protect Palomino's son. So we discuss it with the camaradas there and the Bulldogs there. And we're sending kites back and forth, and we tell them, yeah, it's okay to come out and program, that Bulldogs are going to be part of the mesa, they're going to participate in this decision-making process, and they're going to be treated as camaradas. And if something comes up where one of Bulldogs have to go, they have to handle it themselves. And they agreed to it, and it actually went off without a hitch. Me and Little Mo Ruiz approved it at New Folsom State Prison, and it went well for maybe 6 months to a year. We got back to Pelican Bay State Prison, and we related to Alfonso Palomino that we approved the Fresno Bulldogs to program with Sureños on the yards because of his son. And he appreciated it. And we spread that wire to all other carnales and camaradas as well, so they would know. But here's where more conflict comes in. Mike Boo is from Sanger, California. And the Bulldogs have beef with Sanger Barrio Sureños 13. And that's a gang that was brought about by the Moreno family. We just did an episode on the Moreno family dynasty. You might want to go check that out to get a little background on the Morenos. But this is Mike Boo here at a baseball game. And he's showing the iconic hand symbol. Only carnales can take that picture like that. Only made guys. He's not saying hello. He's saying, yo soy carnal. I'm a carnal. So Mike Boo has been living in Sanger, California. His family's been there for about 50 years. And obviously he's got relatives from Sanger. And Sanger beefs with the Bulldogs. They go to war with Sureños, and Sanger is Sureños. They are loyal to the Mexican Mafia. Bulldogs are loyal to nobody, but they fall under the protection and umbrage of Alfonso Palomino, who's a Mexican Mafia member. Even though Bulldogs attack Sureños, call Sureños scraps, they talk bad about the Mexican Mafia, Alfonso Palomino has a son who's a Bulldog, so he provides them protection. Mike Boo, on the other hand, has relatives from Sanger and wants to protect his family. Mike Boo is largely retired now. He's been put on the shelf, placed on disregard. I don't think he's in imminent peril. I think he's had enough, and he's been subject to all the politicking, and he's just taken a position of retirement now. And Palomino just paroled, as well as Mike Boo, Moreno, and they live in the same area. Palomino is running the Bulldogs. Mike Boo is running Sanger. Here's a picture of a bunch of Barrio Sanger 13 gang members. These individuals are loyal to the Moreno family. And they have adopted Mexican Mafia ideology. They're Sureños, they ride hard, they ride with the carnal that supported them. The phrase Sanger gang typically refers to street gang activity and specific sets operating in Sanger, California, a city in Fresno County that has historically faced challenges within rival criminal organizations. Local law enforcement, including the Sanger Police Department, works alongside regional task forces like the Multi-Agency Gang Enforcement Consortium, MAGIC, to monitor and suppress these groups through targeted crackdowns and legal injunctions. Barrio Sanger 13. This is a documented local Sureño-affiliated gang that's been the target of multiple federal and local crackdowns, including strict court-ordered civil gang injunctions. Bulldog gang sets rival Norteños, aligned or independent local sets such as Chancla Bulldogs, historically claimed territory in and around the Fresno-Sanger region. Hence the conflict. So you have one Mexican Mafia member who has a son from the Bulldogs, and the Bulldogs listen to him while disrespecting the Mexican Mafia and Sureños and warring with them in prison, because the Fresno Bulldogs cannot be anywhere. In fact, during the non-designated housing program integration, there were a lot of incidents occurring in California Department of Corrections with the Bulldogs. Like I said, a couple of incidents in the visiting room and a major blowout, which I'm going to show you in a second. So if Fresno's at war with the Mexican Mafia in prison, how can they be at peace with a Mexican Mafia member in the streets? And here's the thing. Because Palomino has a son from the Bulldogs, the Sanger gang was forced to apologize to his son for shooting at him. They shot at Alfonso Palomino's son while his son was in their neighborhood talking smack to them. What did they do? They did what they were supposed to do. They pulled out guns and they started shooting at him. But they were dogged out. Mike Boo wasn't out there. Palomino enforced on them and made them apologize. Mike got out, cleaned them up. So you have two gangs that are rivals continuing to participate in these rivalries, listening to two Mexican Mafia members. Well, one of those groups, the Bulldogs, wars with the Mexican Mafia and Sureños in prison. And the Bulldogs war with Sureños on the streets. How is that even possible? This is a conundrum that not even I can figure out. I know that Mike Boo has had Sanger wrapped up for years and years and years. And Mike Boo and his family has run Fresno pretty efficiently for the past 30, 40 years. Then Palomino comes out and all this chaos erupts. Conflict between Mike Boo's family and Palomino's family and the gangs that they represent. In this picture, you see Mike Boo's nephew right here. This is the Moreno family member right here with Sanger gang members. He is part of the Sanger gang. And Mike Boo is not going to allow a rival gang to come in and target his family. He's not going to allow that. None of the Moreno brothers are going to allow that. So there is this standoff between Alfonso Palomino and the Moreno brothers, where Alfonso, still maintaining control of the Bulldogs, this warring faction with the Mexican Mafia, and the Morenos maintaining control of Sanger. This is another depiction of the relative of Mike Moreno and the Moreno brothers. That's their nephew, actually. That's their nephew, and he is a Sanger gang member. And those are Sanger gang members shown in this picture here. I want to show you something that's extremely chaotic, right? A lot of people have shown this stuff, but it shows the contradiction in a Mexican Mafia member providing the Bulldogs protection on the streets while they war with the Nuestra Familia and the Mexican Mafia in prison. The individuals in the red jumpsuits are Fresno Bulldogs. The individuals in blues are Norteños and Sureños. They are attacking the Bulldogs as they're being processed into a prison. This is unprecedented, that the Norteños and the Sureños would attack the Bulldogs. These are two different organizations, the Mexican Mafia and the Nuestra Familia, attacking the Bulldogs. And it's war everywhere. In fact, Fresno Bulldogs can only walk 2 yards, and they do so with New Flowers. It's a dropout PC gang that they walk the yard with. So it gives a lot of food for thought, the contradictions, and that's what I try to show, is the contradictions in what you are being told to do as a Sureño or a Norteño, and what the organizations are doing. So if the Bulldogs are the enemy of the organization, why does Palomino provide them protection on the streets? And why does he allow them to war against Mike Boo's territory, which is Sanger? That's a contradiction. I think a lot of this might have to do with Mike Boo's position in the organization. He was put on disregard a while back. Maybe Palomino sees the advantage in claiming more territory or taking over the entire territory. He feels Mike Boo is in a weakened position and has the ability to flex like that. I don't know. That's rank speculation on my part. But in the past, I would have never thought that anybody would challenge Mike Boo. Honestly, because Mike Boo is one of the easiest going cardenales there are. And Palomino has always been I don't know how to say it. He's never been really about anything in the organization. I don't know of one war story that he's involved in. I don't know who made him, when he was made. I know he's an older brother. He's older than me. He's been around longer than me. Was around longer than me. But I don't get the logic in this. Well, one cardenal can embrace a group that's actually doing war with the organization. Now, if this was a firm fist, the cardenales would tell Palomino, target all of them. They're warring with us in here, target all of them. And it's got a lot of similarities with the Maravilla thing in Chato Sandoval. We're going to go into that in another episode as well. But there's a lot of similarities in that, where Maravilla was allowed to war against the Mexican Mafia and then come off the list and be okay and not have to pay taxes for the most part. But this is food for thought. A lot of food for thought here. Another contradiction in the ideology of the organization that just doesn't make sense to me. So for all intents and purposes, the Fresno Bulldogs are an entity unto themselves. They don't show loyalty to the Nuestra Familia. They don't consider themselves Norteños. They don't consider themselves Sureños. And they don't show loyalty to the Mexican Mafia. Now let's remember that they were once loyal to the Nuestra Familia. And let's remember that they once adopted the ideology of the Mexican Mafia. They did that until the Mexican Mafia called upon them to hit one of their own. This was good for about 6 months to a year, when myself and little Mo had arranged this accord between the Sureños at New Folsom and the Bulldogs that were there. Once it was necessary to eliminate one of their own, the Sureños approached the Bulldogs and told them, you have to eliminate your homeboy. Your homeboy's got to go, and they refused. So the Sureños in New Folsom took off on the Bulldogs. In other words, they assaulted the Bulldogs on the yard en masse and removed them from the yard. So you have this group, the Bulldogs, loyal to no one, which is being protected by the Mexican Mafia on the streets, because Palomino's son is a Bulldog. And obviously, Palomino doesn't want anything to happen to his son, so he provides them umbrage. In other words, they are beneath his umbrella on the streets. I'm sure that source of protection does not extend to the prison system. As I've just shown you in the video, Norteños and Sureños are jointly attacking them And I believe this is one of the first times I've ever seen that happen. I have never seen it before, ever. In my history as a carnal and as a prison gang expert, as actually a Mexican Mafia expert, I have never seen Norteños and Sureños move in unison. This is a first for me, which makes it so novel. That's why I wanted to do this, because I've never seen anything like this. And I've never seen a situation where the Mexican Mafia protects a faction on the streets that are at war with the organization in prison. Contradiction. Food for thought. As always, hit the like button, subscribe, hype this video, hype, hype, hype. All right, peace out, stay safe.